Hello and welcome to the Political Opinions podcast, where every opinion is given equal footing and political tolerance and debate are given their proper attention in a world where both are on the decline. Today's episode will cover different opinions on political correctness. Political correctness is the practice of tailoring actions and words to avoid offending certain groups in society, and especially to avoid causing offence to a minority or disadvantaged group. The term has been thrown around a lot in recent decades, with its proponents claiming that it is essential in a democracy. There are of course those, however, who point to the apparent drawbacks of political correctness and argue that instead it is a tool of certain societal groups used to promote a specific agenda. Today we will unpick and compare these opinions. Let's start by first considering everyone's favourite topic of deep conversation, free speech. For proponents of political correctness, they take the increasingly common, more restrained definition of free speech. This interpretation of the word only extends to speech that does not cause harm to others. Essentially, one's language should not include prejudiced views or other sorts of expressions that cause harm or offence to others. This belief in causing offence is also something proponents of political correctness focus on. With a view that would make Piers Morgan very angry, they believe that individuals do have a right to take offence. Just because you do not see something as offensive doesn't mean others view it the same way, and people are allowed to be offended. Your hateful and violent attacks on unicorns could cause great offence to me if I were a staunch supporter of the mythical beasts, and you cannot tell me otherwise. Now, not to say that all liberals support unicorns as much as me, but they do support the belief in a liberal society. Not so much liberal as in the party, but rather liberal in the sense of tolerant and inclusive. Supporters of political correctness believe that we should have a society where everyone is included, with political correctness helping to prevent the reintroduction of what some would consider outdated or prejudiced views. This belief in a liberal culture being the best form of society is explained by the belief in objective truth. While my support of unicorns cannot truly be considered objective, proponents of political correctness may suggest that certain ideas are objective. For example, to say racism is bad is often considered to just be true, and it wouldn't go amiss for people who support political correctness to have other ideas which they believe to be always good or always bad. Therefore, political correctness helps to promote objectively good ideas and dissuade objectively bad ones. Now, on a different note, some supporters of political correctness believe that it is essential for good debate. They believe that PC ensures debates remain focused on the issues at hand and not emotive words and arguments. Political correctness, for example, prevents me from calling my opponent in a debate a cow. Clearly it was forgotten in the 2020 presidential debates, and some would say that it was a contributing factor in why many considered them to be a waste of time. They weren't so much focused on policy, but rather jabs at each other's personality. Maybe next time there will be a presidential boxing match instead, as I hear they are very popular. Let's just hope Bryce Hall never runs for president if that's the case, because he wouldn't get very far. Now, I do wish to apologise. What I said there was very insulting and likely caused offence. Because of that, I should reword it to be more inclusive. Although what I said is objectively true, it still caused offence. And this belief in the inclusive truth is one that supporters of political correctness believe in. Just because something may be true doesn't mean that it has to be said in its rawest form. Honesty and kindness, as well as the truth, must all be balanced together, and as such, we should not offend or marginalise people with a hateful truth. And then to finish, I would like to extend my gratitude to political correctness. It has forced me to rethink all of my hateful ideas about certain TikTokers and other truly inspirational people. By having political correctness, we constantly push individuals with harmful views to reconsider them, admittedly for fear of backlash. But nonetheless, this has a benefit of helping promote positive ideals and pushing people to reconsider their views. While I may not be a massive fan of social media influencers, it may just push me to be more considerate of them before I speak out. Although I absolutely despise Sorry about that, everyone. My automated political correctness bot stopped me from saying name. I would like to extend my dissatisfaction towards this. My freedom of speech has been shattered. Political correctness has this effect to some people. Why should I be prevented from saying something just because it may cause offence to others? Freedom of speech is the freedom to speak, and many people do not want to lose that freedom to be politically correct. Likewise, why should my words potentially offending a wannabe boxer stop me from saying them? It is argued by some that people today are too offended. So often we find people being offended by things that may not even directly concern them. Maybe it's a satire or a joke and is not even offensive to begin with. The aptly named snowflake generation is called so because many believe offence is too easy towards these people in society, and political correctness plays into this. Now, the same people that call snowflakes are the same people called liberals by opponents of political correctness. This doesn't just occur because liberals have a lower melting point than other ideologies, but rather because some feel that liberals are the key proponents of political correctness and use it to push their own agenda rather than for other reasons. Some believe that PC is used to make a manufactured social narrative where liberalism is at the centre. They wish to suppress other views because they disagree with them and use political correctness as a means to make said different views be associated with extremity, prejudice, and more. Moreover, just as the liberal viewpoint is not objectively better to some people, so too is there a wider belief that no ideas are objectively better. There are many different and competing ideologies regarding the way the world should look, and to say that one is more realistic than another is wrong. Political correctness prevents the existence of many differing viewpoints by restricting what can be said beyond those deemed to be politically correct. Now, if you recall, political correctness dictates that I should not be able to call my adversary in a debate a cow. To those opposing political correctness, there too is a belief that we should not be rude to others in a debate. Being considerate and fair regarding personal attacks is often considered a basic necessity, at least for anyone who wants to be able to debate again in the future. Instead, opponents of political correctness argue that it harms debates by restricting the points that can be brought up. A genuine argument may be accused of not being politically correct because it is controversial. We should not have to tailor arguments that are true to fit into political correctness. Now, before we leave this cow point for good, what if you are actually a cow? Now, I don't mean a cow as an insult, but what if you are physically a cow? To call you so would not be offensive if it were true. While this is a completely outlandish scenario, it serves a purpose. To those who disagree with political correctness, there is a belief that the truth should always be said. If you can definitively claim something with objective evidence and empiricism, then it doesn't matter if someone is offended by it. The truth always exists, and it's always there. We cannot run from it, both because the truth still exists, and because it will catch up to you eventually. It's very athletic in this regard. Now, to finish this side, let's consider the potential risk of constant suppression and censorship of non-politically correct ideas. As an example, take Donald Trump. For all his personal criticisms and subjective flaws, his support base was at least far more widespread than many gave credit for. Many of his supporters simply felt marginalised by the US political establishment. Their views were different and often felt cast aside, and as such, when someone who's the opposite of PC comes along, people voted for him in droves. This is a genuine concern for political correctness. It leads to the polarisation of many non-liberal groups. This comes with a wide variety of issues, which I don't have time to discuss today, but let's just say that all those politicians who hated Trump so much did have a hand, at least in part, in his creation. Now on this comparison. The first question is of course free speech, and we have two competing views. We have a more restrained version of free speech, which is aimed at avoiding offending people, and prejudice views, for example, not being free to say, and those who believe that free speech is essential, and political correctness stifles free speech by censoring any view considered controversial. Then on the question of, can someone really be offended? Some would say that individuals have the right to be offended by hateful language. You cannot decide what someone else says, and you cannot decide what other people get offended by. Those disagreeing, however, would say that many individuals take offence too much in today's world, and offence should not prevent people from speaking out. Then on the question of liberal culture, those supporting political correctness argue that it promotes a progressive and forward-looking world. It prevents the reintroduction of prejudiced ideas. Those disagreeing, however, would say that it is used to promote a specific liberal viewpoint which is not objective. PC is used to suppress the existence of other viewpoints, creating a manufactured narrative. Then on the question of objective ideas, surprisingly, we have two differing views. One, that there are definitive, objective, good and bad ideas in society, and PC helps to ensure the good ones are the ones we see. Those disagreeing, however, would say that ideas are subjective. There is no objective truth, and PC prevents the existence of diverse opinions because of this. On the question of what's best for debate, those supporting political correctness argue that debate should be constructive, and PC allows it to be so by preventing the use of prejudiced or offensive words. It keeps the focus on arguments and not emotive language. Those disagreeing, however, would say that PC prevents proper debate by preventing individuals from being able to speak freely. They must tailor their ideas to fit into a wider PC culture. Then on the question of the truth, those supporting political correctness argue that the truth should exist within the confines of what is appropriate to say, and we should not let honesty come at the cost of kindness. Those disagreeing, however, would say that political correctness suppresses the truth because it's considered controversial. If something can be proven, you have no right to stop it being said. And finally, on the question of polarisation, or essentially what happens with political correctness, those supporting it would say that PC reduces the existence of hateful ideas by promoting positive change, by constantly forcing people to rethink their ideas. Those disagreeing, however, would say that it leads to increased polarisation by constantly suppressing other people's views. Individuals who are consistently silenced will become more polarised and maybe even turn to extremes. Overall then, those who support political correctness do so because they believe it has a positive impact on society and leads to a world where we are more considerate of each other. Those who oppose it, however, believe it promotes the viewpoints of a single group and is designed to censor any view said group deems controversial. Political correctness is here to stay, but with the rise of right-wing populist movements, it is also likely that this debate will continue to persist for a very long time. As always, I would love to know your thoughts in the comments or on Twitter. Be sure to check back on Monday for another episode. Thank you everyone for listening, and I hope to see you all soon.